question.
Yeah, so this is from one of your tweets where you mentioned indifference and detachment.
Mm.
So I was contemplating on that, like the difference between indifference and detachment, and how detachment is feels superior for someone on the path compared to indifference.
That's a good question. Well, I tell you what. Why don't we do this? Why don't you? Let's just do. Let's start simple. The difference between indifference and detachment. Detachment is much sought after, especially by Buddhists and other folks, right? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
a to be not indifferent, but somewhat aloof and detached from all the craziness that goes on in the world, right? So why don't we start with a dictionary definition, or maybe you could just ask an AI, what's the difference between indifference and detachment? Let's just consult the language. That might help.
Okay.
Which is a good habit, by the way.
I yeah, I mean I did look it up
Good, 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 good.
before.
So what did you get come up with? Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. So the main difference was when someone is indifferent, they were like two kind of definition. One is when someone is indifferent, that's like a mask for someone who cares about something, but because they are not successful in getting that, they create this mask of not caring about it and being apathetic about things, and that's how indifference comes about. The second definition was when someone really doesn't care about anything and then they are like indifferent about it. Versus detachment is something where someone is doing something because they care about it, but they are not attached to the outcome of the thing.
Beautiful, beautiful,
So,
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, but okay, let's stop right there. Not attached to the outcome, right?
mhm.
Do you have some more on on detachment? A little bit more on detachment, or can we start with that?
So yeah, so that was like the first level of definition. Then there was another level where they were saying that someone who is detached, even when they do things, there is a detachment to the task, even the task itself, because they do it for some kind of understanding, but not because they're gonna get something out of it, and that
Excellent. Okay,
automatically
okay.
makes them detached from the outcome.
All right. And then what's something else we might want to tie into it is not doing, right? The Tao is not doing.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is great.
yeah,
Now, let's go to indifference. And
hmm
the first definition of indifference that you gave was actually, it gave a mechanism by which people become indifferent. You said they develop a mask of not caring because they think they're going to fail or because they don't think it's going to work or whatever. So they're indifferent because they're afraid of failure or afraid that it's not going to work. You see what I'm saying? That's
yeah,
that's called the etiology, or in medicine we call that the pathophysiology. And yes, that is the way that it can come about. It's very pathological, right? It's called you know what sour grapes are?
yeah,
Do you have
yep,
that story? The story of Aesop?
yep, yep, yep.
What can you briefly give me that story?
Yeah, I think it was like someone wanted to eat grapes, but the grapes were too high on a tree.
Right,
So they tried it, they were not able to get it. So then they just assumed, okay, these are sour grapes. I
right.
don't want to eat it anyway.
So yeah, so it's sour grapes, and so basically that indifference was actually a way of masking disappointment, or it's a kind of an infantile thing to do. Like you run a race, and you come in fourth, and you say, well, I don't care about that race anyway, right? Because you came in fourth. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's a primitive defense
Mm-hmm.
mechanism. All right, and that's not something that's not anything that anybody should want in their life or around them for that matter, because you can't understand anything, right? But this other thing about just doesn't care, apathy. I like that, apathy. Apathy. This is something, a big issue these days, because Nietzsche is very much in favor among young people, especially young men, and they don't really understand all of Nietzsche. and neither do I, frankly. But he was not an apathetic man. He cared deeply about his work and about society, and about his, actually he cared about a horse, right? Quite a bit. And he cared about a lot of things, or he wouldn't have written some of the things that he wrote. Now, I don't agree with Nietzsche on a lot of things, but some of the things, he wrote like somebody who really, really cared. He was not apathetic. And so what happens is that apathy and nihilism become like pathologically merged, and you end up with somebody who goes, "Oh, I'm Nietzsche, and I don't believe in God, I don't believe in this or that, and I believe in Superman, but frankly, I don't care, and I'm indifferent. I'm a nihilist," right? Now they're not going to say this out loud, right? But you can tell it by the way they treat their own life, and the way they treat the world, and the way they treat the people around them. And it's a recipe for disaster, right? Nihilism goes nowhere. If it's apathetic nihilism, right? So apathetic, indifference, and nihilism, when you combine those things together, you're going to end up with something that's no good for anybody or anything. Now on the other hand, okay, those who speak do not those who know do not generalize. Those who generalize do not know. So obviously, I'm speaking. I'm not talking about every circumstance. There are things that you could be indifferent to, and that's fine, right? You're indifferent to the price of rice in Bhutan. Well, it's not going to affect you. It's not going to affect anybody else, and it's not important, and so you're just indifferent because you never cared, and there's no reason for you to care, right? So I hope that people don't. Sometimes people take what's obviously a subtle point or not so subtle point, and they make it silly, like they're trying to apply it across the board over every circumstance, and that's no good. Okay, so now that's indifference, and great that you looked up these words and you started to that's the work. The work is learning to think for yourself and say, okay, well, maybe I need to refer to the dictionary or the dictionary to etymology, or who knows, or maybe I need to go back to this book and see what they said about it. But that's how it gets done. That is the work, all right? That's a serious student. Okay, so bravo. Now, detachment. Now, that's interesting because that is something that's sought after by the Buddhists, especially by the Taoists. I mean, not in the same way. If you think about it in Sufi parlance, and also I think it's Jesus, also in the Abrahamic tradition, it says, "Be in the world, but not of the world." So you're involved in the world, but you're not attached to the world because you're not of this world, right? Did I say that too fast? So being detached means that you aren't overly tied to the outcome. You understand that there are forces at work that are far greater than your own mind, far greater than your own capacity, far greater than your own understanding. And you understand that the way will work with you if you work with the way. So one is the way I get my Abrahamics mixed up, but basically it's God helps those who help themselves, right? Or be in the world but not of the world, right? So you're somewhat detached from the world or from the outcome. I love that. That's great. To a point, right? Because you are interested. You do want to wake up, right? So you're kind of attached to that outcome, right? But you don't. But how it happens is not within your control. Your job is to work hard at it and to prepare yourself, because this is everybody's birthright. Everyone has this. It's nothing that one person has and another person doesn't. It's a matter of getting there, and to do that you have to work with your own mind, to master your own mind to some extent. You have to master your ego, and so you have to be detached even from yourself. You have to be detached from your own ego, your own pride, your own accomplishment, your own prestige, your own concern about the opinions of others. You're somewhat detached, and you're free. You see, so if you care about the opinions of others, you become their slave. If you're detached from the opinions of others, then you're a free, much freer man, right? Or woman.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so this
Yeah.
distinction, I don't know where this came from, but this is a great distinction, these two, because there's a world of difference between indifference and detachment. And it's important to know the difference and not fall off into that nihilist, I don't care, who cares, I'll never wake up anyway, they're all a bunch of, they're just selling stuff, or they're just, they're just trying to be, high and mighty gurus, or whatever crazy things come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That should not get mixed up with, well, listen, I'm on this earth for a short time. I'm a spirit having a human experience. I mustn't get too attached to this world. This world has already announced that it's going to depart, right? The world is departing, right? We don't live here very long. We live here a very short time. There's nothing in this world. We know there's nothing in this world that lasts. Nothing lasts. We know that it's going to be destroyed, just like every civilization, every culture, in some way or another, right? And eventually the whole planet, right? If we just project out scientifically, heat, death, and the sun, so on and so on. So we mustn't get too attached to something that's totally temporary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so so in the middle way, you want to go straight down the middle, right? So there's detachment, there's according with the way, there's not being attached to outcome, and being somewhat in the world but not of the world. But if you veer off to the left, now you're into indifference, apathy, nihilism, not caring, right? And that's no good, right? Or if you go the other way, you become a zealot, you become a religious crusader. You start, I'm going to use extreme examples, but you become a warrior for, the Crusades, and you start going and killing Christians or killing Muslims or killing Jews or whatever, crazy, insane thing that people do once their spiritual life has been co-opted by a religion. And so in the middle way, which would in this case would be detachment, we have indifference on one side and we have zealotry on the other, or fanaticism on the other, right? And it's very important to balance these, because you have people on this side that are religious fanatics, right? And more power to them. Maybe that's what they need. Maybe that's all they can handle. And on this side, you have atheists, nihilists, don't care about anything, just maybe about themselves. And both of these people are the majority of people in the world, right? And you have to steer your way in between those two. And so this is a great question. That's a great question. A quick follow-up before we go to the next question?
Yeah. So to understand it better, I wanted to give a couple of examples.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that next. Okay, give me 1 second. All right.